Hi, welcome back to my own little kitchen. I'm Roger. The last episode, we made spaghetti sauce, which is still boiling away here. Simmering away here on the stove. At this point, it's completely vegetarian, but some people like to add stuff to their sauce to give it more flavor. It could be meatballs, it could be sausage, it can be breadcrumbs, which is an Italian rolled flank steak. Right now we're going to do meatballs. In this bowl I have 1 pound of ground beef. I prefer to use the 80-20 ratio because it has enough fat for flavor. To this we're going to be adding a half cup of dried parsley, a 1/4 cup of grated romano cheese. If you don't have romano cheese, you can use parmesan. Here we have 1 teaspoon of garlic powder and a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. Not garlic salt, just the powder. We also have a 1/2 teaspoon of pepper in that. Here we have 1 egg. I'll start mixing it up with the spatula here, but then I'm going to get in there with my hands. It's very much a consistency thing, not so much that you can see, but what you can feel. Now that I've got that pretty much mixed in, I'll start adding some of the Italian seasoned breadcrumbs. This is a 1/2 cup. I may not need all of it. It will all depend on the meat mixture. This may sound strange, but what you want to get it to is basically the consistency of a pate. And one thing I'm not doing, I'm not squeezing it, I'm only stirring it, because you don't want to start making hard little meatballs yet. Just a little bit more, and that should do it. Now, from here, I'm going to make a few larger meatballs, but I know that a recipe is coming up that calls for Italian wedding soup. And Italian wedding soup calls for mini meatballs. So I'm going to take this pound of meat and split it between the two. Something else I'm going to do, I'm also going to cook some sweet Italian sausage. I don't brown them on the stove. I like to cook everything in the oven to make sure it's thoroughly cooked and the outside isn't brown. So this is about the consistency that you want it. It's holding together, there's spices and breadcrumbs and all of it, but it's not overly dry. So again, it's going to hold together. And what I want to do now is take some non-stick cooking spray I can use that, or you can use olive oil. It doesn't make any difference. You just want something to prevent it from sticking to the tray. So first I'm going to make the little meatballs that I'm going to need for the wedding soup in one of the upcoming recipes. So with that, you're talking about maybe at the most an ounce. If you don't trust your feelings, get yourself a kitchen scale and roll them out and do them that way so that you know that you've got about no more than an ounce. Some people will make it half an ounce. I'm going to put these on a separate tray than the meatballs and the sausage, than the larger meatballs and the sausage, because these are going to cook first since they're smaller, obviously. Time to stir the spaghetti sauce. Oh, that's cooking down nicely. If you like Southern Italian cooking, a lot of times Southern Italians will add cinnamon or nutmeg to their sauce, and almost always a little bit of red wine. Both of those are in there. I added it off screen. And as you can see, there's some variation in the size, not a great variation, so they'll cook up about the same. And you might say, well, how is this going to add more flavor to the sauce? Well, as this bakes, it's going to render some of the fat out, and after you take the meatballs out, you can feel free to add as much of the rendered fat out put it into the sauce, or leave it out if you want a lower fat sauce. And you can see the little flecks of cheese, little pieces of parsley, the breadcrumbs. One thing you don't want to do is you don't want to really push these down hard, because that makes for a very dense meatball and they can get on the dry side. I'll move this tray over here. I'll pull this tray over here. I'll add more spray to it. Normally from a pound of meatballs, I can get 8 to 10 meatballs, which means they're a little bit less than a quarter of a pound each. I'm sorry, an eighth of a pound. I'm not very good at math today. It's been a long day. Okay, so I ended up with about 6 meatballs. And on that same tray, I like sweet Italian sausage. They also have mild and they have hot. I prefer the sweet. It has a little more fennel, anise seeds, sweet seasonings, not quite as spicy. To this, I'm going to drizzle a little bit of olive oil to help them brown while they bake and to help stop them from sticking to the pan a little bit. You can see them sliding around the tray now. All right. Clean my hands off a little bit and into the preheated oven. I have it preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I think that's like 177 degrees Celsius, somewhere around there. The little meatballs will be done in about 10 to 12 minutes. The larger meatballs will be done in about 20 minutes, and the sausage will take about 40. So I'm going to set the timer to 10, and we'll go from there. So that's the end of today's episode. The meatballs and sausage are cooking, the sauce is simmering, and when they come out in the next episode, I'll add it all together along with the ravioli that's in the freezer. So until next time, this is Roger from my own little kitchen. Thank you for joining me.